Well, let's get one thing straight. Success isn't about luck. People love to throw the word around when they see someone driving a nice car or running a business that prints money. Oh, he got lucky. She just happened to be in the right place at the right time. Give me a break. That's what people say to avoid facing the truth. The truth is success is built on the back of consistency, not flashes of brilliance, not one lucky break, and definitely not shortcuts. It's about showing up and doing the work when it's boring, when it's hard, and when no one else gives a toss about what you're doing. You want to know what consistency looks like. Well, it's waking up before the sun to work on your business idea while your mates are still asleep. It's learning skills online while others are binge watching Netflix for the third night in a row. It's posting that product online even when no one bought it the first 10 times. Well, it's staying committed when there's no applause, no likes, and no dopamine rush. And that's exactly why most people don't get anywhere. They can't handle the lack of instant results. They'll try something for a week, maybe a month, and when it doesn't make them rich overnight, they say it didn't work. No. Didn't work yet because you give it enough time to compound. You didn't stick with it long enough to see what it could become. Success isn't sexy in the early days. It's repetitive. It's slow. It's often invisible. Well, it's turning up every single day to do what needs to be done, even when you'd rather do anything else. It's working on your goals when motivation is gone and all you've got left is discipline, a half-empty coffee mug. Consistency is what separates the dreamers from the doors. The dreamers say, one day I'll be rich. The doors say, today I'll take one more step forward. Let me give you a practical example. Let's say you start a side hustle, maybe drop shipping, maybe print on demand, maybe you're flipping phones, Facebook Marketplace. You're not going to make $5,000 in your first week. You're probably not going to make anything, but that's not the point. The point is to show up, to learn, to tweak, to test and repeat. It's about listing products every day, answering customer messages, updating your copy, studying competitors, all the little things that don't get views or likes, but build the real foundation of a business. And it doesn't just apply to business. Want to get fit? It's not about one killer workout. It's about eating properly when no one's watching and going to the gym when you really don't want to. Want to get better with money? It's not about one investment that triples overnight. It's about saving consistently, learning how the markets work, and letting compound interest do its thing. But here's the kicker. Most people are addicted to starting. They love the feeling of starting something new, the rush, the excitement, the fresh planner or fancy app. But when that initial excitement dies out, which it always does, they quit, they bounce to the next thing, and then the next. And before they know it, 5 years have passed and they're still where they started, except now they're older, more frustrated, and still blaming bad luck. Luck might open the door, but consistency is what walks you through it. You don't win because you showed up once. You win because you kept showing up when it was hard, when it was dull, and when it felt pointless. That's where the real work happens. In the trenches, in the background, when there's no fanfare, no recognition, just you and the task in front of you. I started my first business making wooden bins in a tiny shed. Do you think that was glamorous? I didn't go viral. I didn't make millions overnight. I kept showing up day after day, product after product, failure after failure. And eventually, all those small, consistent actions started to snowball. Consistency is a multiplier. One day's effort won't do much. But 100 days, 3 of 1,000, that adds up. It compounds. Well, and that's when people start calling you lucky, like you just stumbled into success while walking the dog. They don't see the nights you stayed up late watching tutorials. Well, they don't see the rejection emails or the sare old days. They don't see the early mornings or the night packing runs. Let me hit you with a harsh truthing. If you're not working your own dream, you're working on someone else's. That's the rule. Every single day you clock in, you're either moving closer to your goals or building someone else's vision while yours gets buried under excuses, routines, and forgotten ambition. Now, don't get me wrong. There's nothing shameful about working a job. I started off with one myself. When I left school at 16 with no qualifications and just a toolbox in my hand, I worked for someone else too. And I learned a lot from it. But the moment it hit me, the moment I looked around and realized I was trading my time, energy, and creativity to build a life I didn't even own, that's when everything changed. See, working for someone else is like renting your future. You're giving them 40, 50, sometimes 60 hours a week, every week, just so they can chase their dream, grow their company, buy their second house while you scrape by hoping for a raise that barely keeps up with inflation. And here's the problem. Most people get stuck in that trap. They get comfortable, complacent. They convince themselves that it's safer to have a job, a salary, a set path. But let me ask you something. What's so safe about having one income stream that someone else controls, one decision from your boss and you're gone? One economic downturn, one merger, well, one bad quarter, and you're out the door with a cardboard box and a pat on the back. That's not control. That's a gamble. And it's not a gamble I was willing to take for the rest of my life. Building your own dream means you have to start the next Amazon or invent some revolutionary gadget. It means taking ownership of your time. It means creating something, anything that puts you in the driver's seat, whether that's a small business, a side hustle, a YouTube channel, or investing in real estate. The point is, it's yours. No one can take it from you. You decide the hours, you decide the growth, you decide how high you go. The sad thing is, most people never even give themselves permission to think that way. They've been told since they were kids, go to school, get good grades, get a safe job, and retire at 65 if you're lucky. But who came up with that formula? And how many people following it actually end up wealthy, happy, and free? The truth is, society needs employees. That's how it runs. But if you've got even a spark of ambition in you, if there's a part of you that doesn't want to wake up every morning just to make someone else rich, then you've got to take that spark seriously. Because if you ignore it long enough, it fades. And then you're just another person with regrets and a pension plan that won't stretch past Tuesday. You don't have to quit your job tomorrow. I'm not saying go storm into your boss's office and throw your ID badge across the room like it's a movie. What I am saying, Ice Cube, use the job to fund your dream. Work it while you build something on the side, something that's yours. And as it grows, the job becomes optional, not essential. Well, that's where freedom starts. When you can walk away, not because you have to, but because you can. People say they don't have time. Really? You don't have time, but you've watched every episode of that show everyone's raving about. You don't have time, but your phone screen report says you've been on TikTok for 4 hours a day. It's not about time. It's about priorities. You've got 24 hours just like I did when I was building my businesses in a freezing shed with no heating and a stack of orders to fill. Well, you've got time. You've just got to want it badly enough to use it. The world is full of talented people stuck in jobs they hate because they never stop to ask well, what do I want to build? And that's the tragedy, not failure. Inaction, living your life like a passenger, hoping the driver knows where they're going. When you build someone else's dream, you're helping them live their version of success, their house, their holidays, their freedom. When you build your own, even if it starts small, even if it doesn't make money right away, you're building leverage, you're building confidence, you're building a path out. Well, and that's something a salary alone will never give you. You've got the skills, you've got the ideas, you've even got the motivation. You just bury it under comfort and fear. But deep down, you know you weren't meant to just get by. You were meant to create something that's yours. Well, let me tell you something most people don't want to hug if you want freedom later. You've got to sacrifice now. Well, that means giving up some of the things you think you need today so you can live a life most people only dream about tomorrow. It's uncomfortable. It's inconvenient. And that's exactly why so few people ever taste true freedom, because they're too focused on the short-term comfort to build anything long-term that actually matters. You can't have it both ways. You can't scroll on your phone for hours, blow your paycheck every weekend, and expect to be financially free in 5 years. Life doesn't work like that. You have to choose, do you want to feel good now or do you want to win? When I was starting out, there was no fancy office, no team, no passive income, just a cold workshop, a bunch of wooden bins and long hours. My mates were going out to the pub, spending money they didn't have on drinks and nights they wouldn't even remember the next day. Meanwhile, well, I was grinding, working weekends, learning about product margins and putting every penny back into the business. I wasn't born into wealth. I didn't have connections. All I had was a decision I could sacrifice then so I wouldn't have to settle forever. People say, you only live once. That's true. But the way most people live once isn't worth repeating. Living paycheck to paycheck, stuck in a job they hate, stressed about money, and trading their time for someone else's profit. That's not living, that's existing. And it's the result of prioritizing comfort over growth, pleasure over purpose, convenience over consistency. You have to delay the reward. That's how wealth is built. That's how freedom is earned. If you want to retire early, own your time, or build something that generates income while you sleep, you've got to be willing to do the things that aren't glamorous. Skip the new car. Don't upgrade your phone just because Apple tells you to. Stop ordering food delivery every night like you're a millionaire when your bank account says otherwise. Everyone wants to be rich. Everyone wants time, freedom. But very few are willing to pay the price up front. You've got to live like no one else now, so you can live like no one else later. Sacrifice means staying in on the weekends to build your side hustle. It means watching YouTube tutorials while everyone else is watching TV shows they'll forget next week. It means choosing discipline when motivation fades, which it always does. Motivation is fleeting. Sacrifice is a decision. And once you commit to it, that's where the momentum starts. Well, you'll hear people say things like, you're wasting your youth, or loosen up, enjoy yourself. But here's the thing, what they call enjoyment now often turns into regret later. When they hit 40 or 50 and realize they've got nothing saved, no assets, and no options, that's when the panic sets in. But by then, it's much harder to climb out. I'd rather be called boring in my 20s and 30s and be financially independent in my 40s than be the life of the party early on and stressed about bills the rest of my life. Well, you don't need validation now. You need vision. You've got to see beyond the moment. That's what sacrifice is. Trading what you want now for what you want most. Every time you say no to an impulse purchase, no to a night out, no to wasting time, you're saying yes to your future. You're stacking bricks for something real. And eventually, all those little sacrifices start to show up in your lifestyle, your options, and your peace of mind. While others are stuck needing their jobs to survive, you'll be in a position to choose what you work on, who you work with, and when you walk away. Well, that's real freedom. Not having to ask anyone for permission to live life on your own terms. But you don't get there by luck. You don't get there by following the crowd. You get there by doing what the crowd won't. Why? By sacrificing today. The hardest part is that sacrifice feels invisible at first. You skip the party. No one cheers. You stay in and build your online business. No one claps. You save money instead of spending it. No one notices. But over time, the compound effect kicks in. Your savings grow. Your business starts earning, your skills sharpen, and suddenly you're miles ahead of the people who once laughed at your boring lifestyle. They'll call you lucky. Well, but they didn't see the discipline. They didn't see the nights you stayed up researching product suppliers or tweaking your ad copy. They didn't see the weekends you worked while they were relaxing. They didn't see you sacrificing comfort to build control. Well, if you're waiting to start your dream business until you have the perfect logo, the right laptop, or a six-figure investment, let me save you some time. Well, you're not building a business. You're building excuses. The truth is, you don't need to start big. In fact, starting small is one of the smartest things you can do. Well, it's where every real entrepreneur begins, not with a shiny office or a perfect pitch deck, but with a messy first attempt, a budget spreadsheet, and a whole lot of figurings out as you go. I started by building one bins in a freezing shed. It wasn't glamorous. I didn't have investors lining up. I didn't have a team, but I had action, and that's what matters. You can learn more from taking your first real steps than you will from watching 100 hours of business advice on YouTube. Starting small doesn't mean thinking small. It means being smart with what you have, testing your ideas in the real world, and making improvements without risking everything. Most people get this wrong. They think you need to go all in from day one, max out your credit cards, quit your job, hire a team. Nonsense. The smart move. Start while you still have a job. Use your evenings, sell one product, run one ad, make one sale, then do it again. That first 20 profit from something you created. That's worth more than 1,000 motivational quotes. That's real feedback. That's momentum. Most businesses fail not because the idea was bad, but because the owner tried to scale before they were ready. You've got to earn the right to scale. You earn it by making the small version work first. If you can't make money selling 5 units of something, what makes you think buying 500 is suddenly going to make you a millionaire? Growing smart means paying attention to the numbers. Know your costs. Know your margins. Know what's working and what's not. Don't fall in love with your idea. Fall in love with what works. If something flops, don't cry about it. adjust. If something sells, double down. Business isn't about guessing. It's about testing and improving over and over again. When you start small, you make affordable mistakes. That's the key. You might lose 50 on a bad product. You'll survive. But if you start big and put 5,000 into something untested and it flops, that stings. That sets you back hard. You can learn all the same lessons on a smaller scale without wrecking your finances. Look at the big brands you admire. Most of them started small. Apple started in a garage. Amazon started with books in a spare room. Gymshark started with a sewing machine in someone's bedroom. You don't need to be the biggest. You need to be relentlessly consistent, financially wise, and obsessed with getting better every single day. Growing smart also means not jumping into trends just because they're popular. Well, everyone wants to do drop shipping when it's all over TikTok. Everyone wants to launch a clothing brand when they see someone else doing it. But chasing trends without understanding the business behind them is a recipe for wasting time and money. Start with what you understand or are willing to truly learn. Pick one business model, one product form, and give it time to work. People hop from idea to idea too quickly. They try one thing for 2 weeks, don't see results and move on. But they forget that success is hidden behind boring repetition. If you're making 100 a month from a side hustle, you're already ahead of 90% of people who are still thinking about starting. That's not small. That's proof of concept. Your job is to take that 100 and figure out how to turn it into 300, then Lou 1000, not by throwing money at it, but by sharpening your systems, improving your product, dialing in your messaging. Too many people confuse movement with progress. They set up a fancy website, design pretty logos, post inspirational quotes, and convince themselves they're building a brand. But none of that matters if you're not making sales. Revenue is the scoreboard, and that scoreboard doesn't care how pretty your branding looks. It only reflects results. Every great business you today started with a single sale, one customer, one transaction. That's how it begins. And it's not about being flashy. It's about being relentless. Show up, learn the skills, test the strategies, track what works, grow what's profitable, kill what's not. You'll learn more from talking to your first 10 customers than you will from any course or book. They'll tell you what they love, what they hate, what they wish was better. That's market research you can actually use. And it only comes from starting small, learning fast, and growing smart. One of the biggest reasons people stay broke isn't because they're not smart or not capable. It's because they're too busy trying to look successful instead of actually becoming successful. They're chasing validation. They want people to think they're doing well, so they buy the shoes, the clothes, the car they can't really afford, just so they can look like they've made it. And the truth is that mindset is like a financial black hole. It sucks up your time, your money, and your progress, and leaves you with nothing real to show for it. Let's get one thing straight. You do not need to impress anyone. Not your neighbors, not your old schoolmates, not your Instagram followers, and certainly not some stranger scrolling through social media on the toilet. Most people are too busy worrying about their own problems to care about how impressive you look. That car you leased to look successful. They'll glance at it for 2 seconds, then forget about it. That designer shirt you bought to turn heads. No one's tracking your wardrobe history, but you know who will remember: your bank account, your stress levels. You missed opportunities. Trying to impress others is a losing game because the goalposts are always moving. You buy the iPhone 13, they release the 14. You get a new car, your mate posts a picture with a better one. You go on holiday to Spain, someone else is in Bali. There's always someone richer, flashier, louder. If you tie your self-worth to keeping up, you'll never feel like you've won. I've seen it 100 times. People start making a little money, and then the first thing they do is spend it all on trying to prove they've made it. They don't reinvest in their business. They don't save. They don't build assets. They flex. And what happens next? The income slows down, the expenses don't, and suddenly they're worse off than when they started. I know what it's like. I've been there. When I was younger and started getting a bit of success, I was tempted too. I thought maybe I needed the car or the clothes or the lifestyle to match. But you know what really builds wealth? Keeping your head down while everyone else is showing off. You don't see the richest people trying to prove anything. You think Warren Buffett cares what car you think he should drive. The man's worth billions and still eats at McDonald's. The people who are really free The ones who've built wealth and time freedom aren't interested in impressing you. They're interested in results. It's always the ones who are just starting out, who are insecure about their status, who feel like they've got something to prove. That's when the flashy spending happens. But confidence doesn't come from the watch on your wrist or the logo on your hoodie. It comes from knowing you're building something that matters, even if no one sees it yet. The most powerful thing you can do is go silent and build quietly. Let people laugh. Let them think you've gone boring. Let them think you've fallen off, because you're not posting every minute of your life online. And while they're watching and talking, you're learning new skills, launching a business, stacking cash, investing, making moves. Do you know how good it feels to walk into a room and know you can buy everything in it, but have the discipline not to? That's power. That's confidence. That's freedom. The moment you stop needing people's approval is the moment you start making real progress. Social media is the worst for this. It's become a giant stage for pretending. You've got people borrowing cars for a day just to take pictures, renting out apartments for photo shoots, posting quotes about success while they're broke and drowning in debt. And then there's you actually working, building, learning. But because you're not posting about it, people think you're behind. You're not behind. You're just not playing the fake game. If you keep chasing people's opinions, you'll always feel one step behind. But when you start building for yourself, for your goals, your family, your freedom, you stop caring about the crowd. You stop needing claps. You stop looking over your shoulder and finally focus on what matters. The quiet builder always wins because they're not distracted by trying to be impressive. They're focused on being effective. And guess what? When the time comes and your business is booming, your investments are compounding and your life is under your control. That's when the same people who ignored you start asking how you did it. But by then, you'll already know the answer. It wasn't about proving anything to them. It was about doing the work when no one else was watching, about prioritizing results over recognition, about choosing long-term freedom over short-term applause. If you only work when you feel like it, you'll spend your life broke, stuck, and full of excuses. The difference between people who make it and people who don't. It's not talent. It's not luck. It's not having the perfect plan. It's this: they do the hard stuff, especially when they don't feel like it. That's where the real winners are made, in the hours when no one's watching, when there's no motivation, and every cell in your body is telling you to quit. That's the moment you either step up or stay average. Anyone can work when they're hyped up, when everything's going well, when the YouTube video tells you to grind and the coffee kicks in. That's easy. But it means nothing. What really counts is whether you can show up when you're tired, discouraged, and tempted to say, I'll do it tomorrow. You know, when I was building my first business, there were plenty of days when I didn't feel like working. I was cold. I was tired. The money wasn't coming in yet. I didn't have a fancy setup or anyone cheering me on. I had problems to solve and bills to pay. But I got up and did the work anyway, because I knew no one was going to do it for me. That's what people don't understand. They think successful people are motivated all the time. No, we're just committed. We've trained ourselves to act regardless of how we feel. We've built the habit of pushing through discomfort because we know that's where the results are hiding. You want to lose weight. It's not about one good workout. It's about dragging yourself to the gym after a long day at work when your legs feel like concrete and the sofa's calling your name. You want to build a business. It's about sending that email, finishing that product listing, learning that new skill when you'd rather switch off and scroll. Discipline is doing the job even when the mood has left the building. And the truth is, your mood is unreliable. It changes with the weather, with what someone said to you this morning, with how well you slept. If you let your life be run by how you feel, then your life will be inconsistent at best and a mess at worst. The hard stuff isn't meant to feel good. It's meant to stretch you. That's why so few people do it. They stay in their comfort zone where it's warm and familiar and nothing ever changes. But growth doesn't happen in comfort. Growth happens when you're sweating, struggling, failing forward, and still choosing to keep going. You want to know why people keep failing. Because the second it gets uncomfortable, they stop. They start strong. But as soon as it isn't fun anymore, they ghost the whole thing. They blame the strategy, the algorithm, the timing, everything but their own lack of grit. Success isn't for the smartest, it's for the most stubborn. The ones who refuse to quit. The ones who do the work without needing applause or results straight away. That's what separates the pretenders from the producers. You don't build a business by reading motivational quotes all day. You build it by working through problems, testing ideas, making mistakes, and refusing to give up when things move slower than you hoped. That's where most people fall off. They expect fast results, and when they don't get them, they stop showing up. But if you only put in the work when it's easy, you'll never get to the level you're aiming for. The high earners, the ones living on their own terms, they've trained themselves to show up no matter what. Sick, they work. Tired, they work. Bad day, they still work, because their goals mean more than their feelings. Doing the hard stuff means saying no to comfort. It means writing the blog post when you'd rather watch TV. It means fixing your website when no one's clicking. It means reading the book instead of doom scrolling on your phone for the 100th time. It means choosing to progress over procrastinate. And no, you're not going to feel fired up every single day. That's fine. You don't need to. What you need is to act despite that. You need to be the kind of person who doesn't negotiate with laziness, who sees a tough day not as a reason to slow down, but as a test of character. Every time you show up on the days you don't feel like it, you're proving something, not to others, but to yourself. You're training your brain to stop depending on motivation and start depending on systems, habits, and discipline. That's where everything changes. Because the truth is, the hard stuff is the only stuff that moves you forward. The easy stuff feels good, but it doesn't grow you. It doesn't stretch your skills, your resilience, or your mindset. Growth is always inconvenient, always uncomfortable, and always worth it for the ones who push through.